All right, so another big ship here. Um, this is utilizing not all the space that it's got. I build this in stages because I'm testing some specific things. First off, I build it the way I did here because I want to have the windows in the back. I want to test all of those ports on the side. So I want to have all those windows. And so I specifically built it this way so that I could utilize those windows and confirm that all those um, structure swaps on the inside work properly. And of course, I wanted to build another big ship, put all these things together and see how they work. The better build here would not to be using those side engines, but use the whole set of six. But like I say, I'm specifically doing this because I want to leave those back windows open for the first go around. So we'll put this into a contrast view so you can see a little bit better how this is done. There is a whole lot of structure pieces that are filling in places where I could stick a hab, and actually later on in the video I'm going to stick a 2x1 captain's hab on the second level and a 3x3 lounge on the bottom level behind the entryway. So, like I say, I'm doing this in stages. So there on the top, I've got that 3x3 museum and the 2x3 lounge. You can see all the structure pieces that I've got in here. So all those could actually be another hab, but of course, top to bottom to other habs, you risk getting a ladder that you don't want. So isolating them like that is one way to assure that you don't get a ladder. And I wanted to do this in stages to do some specific testing. So clean up all my save files. I don't need all that other stuff. Let's take a look at it. Oh, page out. I'm going to look on the outside first. See if I see anything that I missed. I can't put a window on that front corner because the staircase is a hog. It's a space hog. It's a trade out. You get something, you give something up, and you give up spatial connectivity around that thing, but you get the advantage that you get. So, trade out. It looked okay. All right, so this floor has the workshop and it has an armory. I always put a workshop right as close as I can to the entryway because between dropping things on the ground and doing the console magic and convenience of running in and out of the ship between the console and the workshop always is going to be as close to the entryway as I can make it. And then the other hab is there, the armory is there just because there's space. And typically the workshop is for creating things that would go in the armory anyway for decoration. All right, so we utilize a straight through to go back because we're utilizing the staircase, then we use the straight through. So that's our way to get to this level. And we've got one on both sides, so there's a convenience factor. It's not like you have to run track to get somewhere. That's where the docker is. The docker, you can actually put the docker on the bottom. This will accept being a bottom docker. It's got the real estate for it. I just don't like bottom dockers. I prefer a side docker or a front docker. Side docker number one, front docker number two, roof docker and bottom docker. Meh, prefer not. But I think I'd probably take a bottom docker over a roof docker. You know, all this stuff here is the same hab that I was working on as I was doing my test, and then I built it out. And so it did not lose any of its decor in updating this ship with the other habs and moving this hab to the top, which amazes me, because when you move a hab, usually you sacrifice all of your decor that you put in with your outpost tool, and I did not lose anything. It all stayed in place. I'm amazed. And so this is that was the Shattered Space Valroon stuff, and that glimpse of that second wall was stuff from Armada. And these are all the roulette wheel of skins. But I like the way that the material swaps worked, and these assets have gone together, blending stuff from Shattered Space and things I was able to dig up. I like that floor. You know, if the floor doesn't look right to you, I'm partially colorblind, so I see things different. To me, that looks good. So I'm telling on myself here. I realize that it might look in poor taste, but you gotta suffer with me with the fact that I'm a little bit colorblind, and so I don't see colors the same way other people do, and that looks good to me. It's a bronze, kind of a dark bronze, aged bronze, not oxidized bronze, but a buff bronze looking floor with black stripes. Um, and then the walls are shiny metal to matte black swap. And I put some tail walls in, and the tail walls give me a black matte swap also, but it's not the same stuff that I have between the original walls that came in the hab and the tail walls. Apparently, they get a different list of options of what they can swap. I haven't learned how to find stuff that's not in the list and add it to the list. They're just information I haven't found yet on how to do it. So I like the way that this came out, um, considering the fact that I sacrificed shape for windows because I wanted the windows. I like the light. I like what it looks like from the inside. On the outside, trying to make things look where the edges blend a little bit better. You put structure pieces and lose your windows. So it just depends on whether you want to what it looks like from the outside or whether you want what it looks like from the inside. And in this case, I'm testing those windows, and I like windows, and I think the outside looks fine. So I'm coming over here to my outpost so that I can take a look at it in a different perspective, different lighting, and from a perch at a distance to see how the overall shape blends. And I tend to like the pontoons being lower. I don't know why that is. It's just a look um, that the high wings is just not as aesthetically pleasing, I think, as the mid wings or the low wings, and it could just be um, an imprint of what aircraft should look like, and there's a difference between like a high wing Cessna and a low wing Piper, or a jet fighter or whatever, and how the wing position. Um, but I actually, I later on in this video, I do some wing alterations to play with that a little bit and see what it looks like, and what the feasibility is with connectivity. And I revert to the high wing. I like the high wing better than all of it, even with the wings pushed back a section or so, so that they're closer to the rear than to the front, and lowered. I like this look better. Plus the symmetry of those entryways, just it all lines up easier. You don't really have to have uh, all of those pieces to tie it together. You don't have to have four. You can actually have three, because you need to have at least one tie straight across, and then you need to have a tie to the habs between the pontoons and the main body. So that means that in repositioning these, the ladders, like I say, they're a space hog. So trying to make them where everything's symmetrical and everything's straight across from everything, there's only there's limited choices of how to make that work, and and not have something that is being interfered with. It's got to be moved, and so it changes the symmetry. It's like here, I can't do the same thing on the port side as I've done on the starboard side, because the port and starboard proxemics of the staircase are uneven. It's uneven, and so depending on which direction you flip it, that's the side that gets uneven, and that means then that you have to do something creative in order to make that work. And there are workarounds to it, like what I've done there. You just move it to a different position, and they're not completely offset, which I think with as much visual data is there, and as complex as the structure is, it's not overly obvious. It kind of gets masked for me in the overall volume of shapes that are there, especially when you start adding the color combinations where you get the striping and so forth that's there. You can notice it a little bit, or I can notice it a little bit, but to me it's not annoyingly noticeable to where I'm like, no, I can't have that. I've got to have this symmetrical, because I'm actually have a certain affinity for asymmetrical builds also. That as long as you can make the shape flow and your eye flows from one corner to the next and doesn't get locked on any one spot, then to me it's working to an acceptable level of aesthetics. It's got to flow. If you this is the problem with bullseye artwork, is that everything is centered on this one focal point and you don't travel the canvas. So if there's something that gets out of place to where your eye does not travel all the points, it just gets locked on this one point, that one point is generally a problem unless it's intended to be the focal point. So this is with it lowered, which looks okay, but I think if you're going to lower it like that, then you need to do something on the tail end and that's because I don't like a turtle look, and that raises the top too high to everything else and starts making it look more like a turtle than a pancake. And of course, pancakes are more appealing than turtles, right? I don't know. I had turtles as a kid. I loved them. But anyway, as far as the shape is concerned, the top edge dropping off to the windows is a trade out. Um, it doesn't bother me because I want the windows, and that's what you have with windows. And I think it looks all right because it delivers the windows, and there's not an option to make that tapered any. And if there was an option, you'd be losing space anyway. So I think that works okay. In the back, it does look a little bit different with the engines offset because I'm used to that flowing in a different way. But and there's structure pieces and such. There's ways to deal with all of that. But like I say, again, this was specifically to test the windows and to have windows, and so that's what I'm doing. And I do try some other pieces to show how I would some of the options of remedying and how that would make that flow a little bit better. So there's structure pieces, and there's engine placement, of course, that makes that flow to something that I think is a little bit more more aesthetic. So these habs go together well. All of the windows are working fine. I like having those windows there as opposed to the shelves that would be there. And all of the windows work, so that test is good. At some point I'm going to need to actually snap habs to each one of those corners. I'm not as concerned about the top portals because if the top can't punch a hole, that's a plus to me. And it's not proper. They need to be able to punch a hole if you want a hole, but I don't, in any of my builds, I don't really want them. And I have done the snap references to every single plug on the ship, which is a bunch on a 3x3. And you just kind of have to like go zen in your head while you're sitting there redundantly doing snap reference and stay focused. And it's hard if you're ADHD. It's really difficult to get through all of them and not screw any of them up. It's hard to stay focused on it. But so this is with it basically looking straight across, which is the low step on it, and it's functional. Now I'm going to show another stage of that where they're pushed back, but it's not functional because I haven't added any habs below. Later on in the video, I throw another 3x3 down on that lower level along with the level going into the cockpit. Behind the cockpit, I put in a captain's quarters because that spot, as it is right now, only has a tie that takes you to the staircase, and so it's like a staircase to a staircase, as opposed to a staircase to a hab that takes you. There's also another staircase that takes you to another level, and I think that's inefficient. It shouldn't be a staircase to a staircase. It should be a staircase to an objective, and then there's also a staircase that carries you to another level. And so I remedy that here in a little bit. So this shows how, with the wings lowered, you can balance the look off. And I say balance. This is this is the kind of visual balance that I need for it to look right. Is that, and it's probably an imprint from just seeing so many airplanes. I mean, I had a pilot's license at one time where I was learning to fly small aircraft and considering learning to fly a non-fixed wing. Um, because my father used to go to auctions out of the county and such, and it was just be convenient. So we were looking at getting a private plane and doing some flying, and I took flying lessons. Um, and so that I've seen a lot of aircraft and things to an extent. When it looks like it has wings, it's got to have a certain look to it, or it doesn't look right to me. And so that's probably why I I I build the way that I do, is because I have a certain imprint on what something should look like, and if it doesn't look like that, it's wrong. So we're going to look at the contrast of this so that we can see. Um, I'm going to show here that you can put a bottom docker in there, but to put a bottom docker in there, um, that other structure piece pretty well ought to go, and then you got like a chopped off edge at the back of the um, entry bay, but it is an option. It will accept a bottom docker there. Um, if you didn't want to do a side docker, and the roof is kind of busy for putting in a top docker, and I really can't stand the ladder, so I didn't even consider a top docker. But a one by one off to itself behind the entry bay, that's got a bottom docker. I will do that sometime, but I haven't really done it much in the last, I don't know, several months, because I just don't like I don't like any more ladders than I need to. I'll take the half ladder of the entry bay for the conveniences that it provides, and that it's not really that obtrusive. But a second one for uh, a bottom docker is just something that I tend to gravitate away from. So that's what it would look like if uh, if I wanted to keep that engine arrangement like that, but I would still throw another one by one um, behind the three by three and give it a portal just so I have that viewing capability. And that's just me. And then, yeah, I would snap that back also. That's too long, too much of a line up there on top. And breaking it up the way it does. And we've got the structures on the outside pontoons, and then a slight overlap to the ones that are in the back on the roof of the 3x3. That's more aesthetic, in my opinion. So we go back to this low wing, and I'm looking it over to decide how I'm going to push the pontoons back to get them back to where they're behind the visual of the cabin. Now, originally, what I wanted to do when I first started building this is I wanted to make something where I was using that cockpit to the far rear of the structure, and then everything stretch out around it and forward of it. I didn't end up with it that way because I specifically was still trying to use the 3x3, and um, as I built it and started adding the engines and so on and so forth, this is how it came out. So that would be positioning, which means that the fuel tanks need to go forward because I need to have enough real estate for the staircase area hog. I've got to be able to go from the entry bay to these habs. So there's got to be some connection between the habs that are tied to the cockpit or the entry bay. And in this case, I'm not really following that rule. I'm just snapping stuff in to see where the positioning would be, and keeping a mental note as to where I need to go in and then make a pathway, add halves or a pathway. Because like I say, I'm going to throw a 3x3 in there at the very bottom, and that captain's quarters 2x1. Now, by putting the straight across all the way to the rear, which is something that I do here in a little bit, that is not practical because it's on the second level where it snaps, and I'm not putting anything on the second level because I'm trying to keep things isolated. Actually, the captain's tab will be on the second level, but it'll be on the second level underneath the 2x3 that's right behind the cab. So it'll be right behind the cab below that, and I can control that easily enough, and probably not get a ladder. And in fact, I know I didn't get a ladder, so I lucked out on that, the way my habs are working. But as far as trying to pick up a pathway to these pontoons, I've got to be able to make the pontoons tie to the upper level, because that staircase is the tie to the upper level from the second level, and then I have to have a tie from the second level to the pontoon, because the pontoons are they deliver the staircase function between the second level and the third level. And by shifting them around and moving them back, I've now got to play musical chairs sort of with the connectivity to see if I can pick connectivity up. And as it is right now, I've got connectivity set up for the pontoon to the upper level, but that location is not, that location of the straight through is on a structure piece, and that would not give me connectivity. But it does, well, it gives me a fasten point and an aesthetic positioning for the weapon mount, where I've got the suppressor and visual balance, but it's a dummy connection. So I would have to rely on the other connection of the other pontoon to deliver the pathway. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said that you got to have at least 3 of them working. One of them can be a dummy connection that is there for aesthetics and visual balance, but you're better off to have all of them working. Otherwise, you're running track to get from one level to another. So, because of the need for the real estate, I'm moving these wings, removing them, because ultimately, for a configuration like this, I would be losing those windows, and I would be using a 6 of these engines. Now, I'm at my outpost right now, so I don't have access to those other engines to fill that in. It takes me a moment to snap, oh yeah, I'm not at my universal shipbuilder, and that's why when I click on this and try to duplicate it, it won't duplicate. It takes me a moment to figure that out and realize, oh yeah, I'm at my outpost and I don't have access to that. Now, I could have just dropped those engines in there like that, those other engines in there like that, and gotten by with that. And it probably would have looked all right too, and followed the followed the logic just fine. But that back straight across there on the port side, or the very rear between the pontoon and the second level, that's not functional because it's connecting to a structure piece, not to a hab. I mean, it's got a hab on the pontoon, but the other side of it's on a structure piece. So in order for that to work, I would need to put in a structure piece underneath that 3x3 and link it all the way up to the cockpit in order for that to work. Um, so now the other structure piece is up there. I think I think I'm actually connected to a structure piece there too. So it's neither of those pontoons or the upper level are actually linked at this point. I would have to make an alteration where there was a hab connected to at least one of those straight throughs to between the cockpit and the pontoons in order for those pontoons to become active. And then the staircase on the pontoons would then be able to link the upper level and the other pontoon. But that's what it would look like swept back, you know, positioned down and swept back. And you could probably fiddle with that just a little bit more and figure out a way to make them where they were in the same position. Move the gas tank, the fuel tanks around, change the fuel tanks out altogether to put fuel tanks underneath the ship. There's some of those structure pieces there, the trim on the side that could be removed to utilize some space. There are some options that probably could make that work out, but all in all, while I kind of like that lowered look and then back a little bit, this is the look that I really am the most comfortable with. It's just the easiest build. The pathways that you get are better pathways, and the whole idea anyway was more about having the habs and easy access to the habs as opposed to the overall look of it, and not caring as much about the pathways and what it was like internally. So here we're back to the default layout where we started. So I've loaded a save game from where I started, and I'm going back to make sure now that I'm at that save point and I'm going through everything. I say here in this room, there needs to be utilization of this floor, better utilization of that floor. And I'm going to put a captain's hab there. And then I've got I've got 2 layers of structure pieces, like 18 structure pieces, 9 on top of 9, that are just structure pieces. And that's not a good utilization of space. And I can put a 3x3 hab there on the bottom, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But I'm just going through now doing a sanity check to make sure that I'm at the right return point and everything is working here. That I'm back at my base build, and it looks like I am. So. I think the Shattered Space artwork was really cool. I like I like what they did with it. I wish I could find more access to the material swaps. They're there, but there's some complexity to accessing them that I'm not in the mood for. I'm too lazy to do all that. I'm not doing that. Though it is nice. The art was really nice. I didn't get all the missions done either. I just have a low tolerance level for joiner, cultist, um, content. It's just I got my fill of it pretty early on, but the artwork and having never done it was enough for me to go through the basic point to the end to where they wanted me to decide that I was one of them and would run things or choose which house was going to run things, and none of those were my choices, and I kind of wound up, you know, telling them no with a, a weapon and leaving under conditions that they didn't want to see me come back. All right, so I'm pulling out 9 structure pieces, and I'm going to drop my 3x3 in. My 3x3 lounge is going to drop right in there, and I'm having a little bit of trouble because it always wants to take priority of snap points, and I got to put my mouse cursor off the ship so that I can actually make a selection and then bring it into where I can then snap it into the ship, and fighting that a little bit. Okay, finally let me grab it. Now we got my 3x3. They're on the lower level. Nine structure pieces. I'm going to delete. In place of that, put something in that's useful and make utilization of that space. I think I put my 2x2, 2x1 in also, didn't I? I think I did. Let's go take a look at it. Okay. There's my 3x3. That's the kind of utilization of space I like to see. Workshop. Oh, I have not put my 2x1 in yet. Okay. I will. I just didn't yet. I thought I did that at the same time, but I don't remember. Which makes sense, because usually I do one thing at a time and check the results. All my decor that's outpost placed is not disappearing when I do that, and it's a good thing. I like the way this turned out. I like those new Valrune armor sets too. I think they did a good job in designing those. They've got a nice look. There's so many of the spacesuits in the base game look goofy. Miner suit, peacemaker suit, all of that stuff. I did not find the look to be that appealing, cool of a spacesuit that I wanted to put on. Pretty much most of that stuff is It's like the manta suit, I think is a joke. It's grandma got on her sewing machine and made her a superhero weapon, spacesuit, and that's what it looks like, and it's funny. And I laugh at it when I see it, and that's what I think, and it's all right. I'm okay with that. You know, now if that's not the way that they intended it to come out, and I'm laughing at it, my apologies. It's still funny, and that's what I think. But the other stuff, the mining suits and all of the other stuff, I just didn't think that it was as appealing, with exception to the War Dog armor and the Annexia armor, the armor that you get for doing the Terramorph thing. And those sets are awesome. I also like the UC sets of the UC armor. They look more proper, and they appeal to me. But a lot of those other sets, I don't know. I think that the Navigator didn't look too bad, and the Deep Seeker didn't look too bad. Okay, so I'm looking at this space here, trying to decide. Okay, I can put my Tubo one in. I'm going to keep my my cargo, so I'm just going to shuffle two of these structure pieces away, move that cargo to the side, open up a spot behind the one by one that supports the access to the stairways, and drop in my 2x1 captain's quarters, and that's a perfect place for it to be. Right there, right behind the captain's chair. And so the risk is, though, of it popping a hole in the 2x3, but I think the way that I've created my custom placement of some interior walls and structure is making it where those floor plugs and roof plugs don't want to activate. And I say that's a win. I do not want a ladder going into my captain's quarter ever. But I did do the snap references, and I got my wish. No ladders punched. So that's a win. So everything's still good. I didn't produce any ladders in my 3x3. Everything's still open and looking correct here. And now is the captain's cabin, and do I have any ladders? No. Perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly what I'd like. And every single floor now is utilized with habs. It's not just a ladder to a staircase to a staircase. And this is better design. That's what I would consider better utilization of space. Getting rid of a lot of those structure pieces to actually put in a functional hab usable space. Celebrate with a little decor. Those couches there actually would be a good placement in here. I just haven't really been using them because their actual aesthetic quality is a little bit more cheap lounge looking than the classy look that I'm trying to achieve. And I think those old antique furniture looking couches have more appeal, more visual appeal in this setting. Of course, that's the kind of couch that you weren't allowed to sit on because you'd mess it up. And it was for company to see when you go sit in the kitchen. I like wood furniture that's antique wood like that. Somebody used to pay attention to detail and be a craftsman and actually do high quality furniture making like that. That was an art, working wood like that and getting the proper wood that had the proper grain and didn't have the flaws in it. I'll mess with that probably a little later on. You get that a little closer to the wall. It's a little tricky to get it to the wall and not get it on that lip where it's up in the air a little bit. You know, I saw a color swap for these shroud habs. It'll turn that, whatever color that is, that dark color to gold. That might be interesting. It also might be too goldy, gaudy. Gold can be that way. It can be overused and overpowering. Gold trim is one thing, but the whole wall being gold might be too too much. In my mind, thinking about it, it would probably be too much. Brassy looking of a gold, more of a brassy looking might not be so bad. It might be more steampunk. So if I built in some more steampunk aspect, that might actually work and flow. I think this gold floor, it's actually a ballroom floor swap, and you can't change that black. I mean, when you do ballroom floor, it puts that full combination down. But I think that that works because of the other overall darkness of the other colors and the shiny. And if it doesn't work and you're not me, there's also the color blindness issue that I've got. So I'm going to make the excuse that we're not seeing things the same way. I justify it because there's some extreme contrast there, but the extreme contrast works for me. And it could just be that it's different, and I've been trying to get access to those material swaps, so it's automatically got a pass for me because it was success in getting something that looks like it came from a couple of locations that I've been trying to snag their skins off of, and that was like the first success to getting something like that. So I'm applauding it and enjoying it for the moment, and it feels like it works right now. Okay, so now then that we've tested the windows and we know that the windows are working, I'm going to go ahead and change out the engines and make this a little bit more aesthetic of a rear end, something that I think flows a little bit better. It's kind of been bothering me looking at that, and biting my nails between liking having windows and that look not quite flowing. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I normally do with this kind of a rear build. And I'm going to make that a full stack of these engines. And then I'm going to put a 1x1 in there over that to extend that so that there's a sitting room, a 1x1 companionway in there. And now I'm looking to see if there's one that I've already have on my ship that I can grab real quick because I'm being lazy instead of just going in and opening up the hab and grabbing one. Don't I already have one here I can duplicate? Okay, so the storerooms tend to be more trashy. They tend to retain more trash on the wall rack. Somebody thought that was a good idea to put the trash on the wall. It doesn't appeal to me. I like to get as many windows in these 1x1s as I can to make all that stuff go away. But the companionways tend to be more aesthetic with respect to less trash on the wall, or at least look less trashy. So I'll tend to grab a companionway over a storeroom, even the ones that I've built out, because I've only built out the corners. And in this case, there's 2 windows there that aren't going to pop. They're going to be shelves full of trash. And so the trash is not as bad in the companionways as it is in the storerooms. It's better trash. So I moved this structure piece up, and I actually would like the idea of moving it up to the middle level, because then it would be a structure against structure pieces and open up the 3x3 to have windows. But it would then get into proxemics of those area hog staircase structures, and it just wouldn't work. So it would be getting rid of them altogether if I wanted those windows. And I think that when you get a stack of even 2 habs together, where it's windows on top of windows, one hab against another, and they have windows, though I like the windows, on the outside it looks like an apartment building, stacking windows, and it doesn't have the aesthetics that I would like it to have. The character becomes too just the repetition of the windows, I think, doesn't appeal as much as the structure pieces. But I like to have the windows, so it's a tug of war which way I go with that. And for this is I think a better outcome than all of the windows. So this works. I think it works visually. It definitely works as far as the structure and no ladders. Maybe getting some benefit from the way that I've built my habs, that they resist ladders. That wasn't something that was intended. It was something that happened, I'm thinking. So there's good, bad, and ugly that I guess it happens with some of the way that I put stuff together. One of the ugly is the roulette I play with weapon skins that I use for decor. But that's not that ugly. That actually is fine, because originally I didn't think I was even going to get skins because they were being turned into objects. I didn't think that the routine to skin them would ever have a chance to run. to find out that that wasn't the case. That occasionally I do get skins, and on some things more frequently than others, and that's just the way it is. And I don't have an explanation for it. I haven't observed the information to give me a clue uh, to what I need to do to make that consistent. But the ladders and not getting ladders, I have no complaints about. I think that a better design of the game functions would be is um, to have the option of putting a ladder in a location, being able to select it and have a item that you can click on it when you're assembling it and say, I want this to be a pathway here from here to here, as opposed to some random generation. You know, if they wanted to do that with their gamification of ships that you enter that were created in game for you to go assault, uh, that's fine. But for people that are building in the shipbuilder, that should be an option, and it should lean more to using one by ones for generation of ladders, uh, and again by choice. It should be a choice. It shouldn't just be a random, we're going to throw a ladder here in this one by one that's behind this uh, cockpit that's got a stairway, so that you have to go around the ladder to go up the stairway to come out of the cockpit stairway to go around another ladder. That's just stupid. That is broken. And when it does that, that is worse than annoying, and that ought to be resolved. But I'm not facing that. Something is working out where I'm not having to deal with ladders, and I'm very happy about that. So this is a little bit weird. The proxemics being able to launch the camera view uh, in certain situations. So what I do is I actually rotate the camera around to the side, and when I rotate to the side and zoom out, I now have space, but I don't have space when I'm behind myself or when I'm sitting there. I don't have space for it to go into camera mode. And the thing about camera mode is I think you actually get a better resolution of what you're capturing, and it removes all the watermarks from the game and all of the things that it adds to the uh, display. It's where you're just getting a view of of the subject, and so that's actually a nice feature that they do that. I'm going to go in and rescreen that floor. Screw around with that maybe. No, no, that'd be permanent. No, I'm going to throw a rug on that for this. I'm not going to mess with that floor. But I like the outcome. I think this worked out. I like the coffee bar in there, two fountains, all of the walls look like they're working properly. And I changed out a few of the walls. They had structure pieces built into the wall that didn't make any sense to me. I don't know what they were for, and they weren't useful, and they were ugly. So I just snapped those walls out and duplicated a wall that was more aesthetic, uh, more to what I wanted, and then snapped the already built Teo vertical on top of it, which gave me the benefit of having a Teo material swap that had an aesthetic complement to what I was doing that worked better than any of the other options that the base ship material swaps were offering. So there was a there was a benefit from that. Yeah, it's another really big ship, but they're fun. They're fun to put together and see all the bling and make a estate homestead build out of it and go sit someplace and listen to the background music. That's all been fun. So there we go. Another big ship. Too big for the camera.